Hi, my name is Billy, and welcome to another Social Media 2 class video. In this video, I'll be talking about my favorite hobby, sword collecting. People often wonder, why swords? Why pick a hobby that's both expensive and guarantees you'll stay single? Seriously though, why swords? Why do people collect anything? Some people collect stamps, some people collect firearms. Ever since I was a kid, I was obsessed with swords and knights and ninjas and samurai. Every Sunday, my grandfather would take me to the local flea market, and my favorite booth was a ninja booth. I was allowed to look, but not touch. So when I was finally old enough, I bought my first samurai sword. It was intended to be a one-time purchase, but I was bit by the bug and found myself getting sucked into the whole sword collecting scene. Part of the reason why I find the subject of swords so fascinating is because you inevitably end up learning other stuff through osmosis. You can see the origins, how they were made, what materials were used, and what period of history they came from. For example, a sword used by a Viking-era warrior is different from the type of sword used by a knight in full-plate armor 400 years later. The shape and size of the sword evolved over time to reflect the type of armor they were used against. I brought two swords from two different time periods that show how blades changed over time. The first is a Norman-style sword, almost always one-handed, used primarily during the 10th and 11th centuries. It has a broad, heavy blade and a lenticular cross-section and scalloped tip. This design was most effective at cutting, hacking, and slashing. A blade of this type was capable of cutting through both mail armor and heavy fabric. When used on horseback, the Norman-style sword could lop off heads and limbs with ease. As armor began to improve, going from chainmail, leather, and heavy fabric to full plate suits most people recognize, swords changed too. The second sword is a replica of a 15th century Italian longsword. As you can see, it's obviously longer and has a hilt designed for two hands. The blade became thinner, tapering to a fine point, so soldiers could use a tip to slip through chinks in the armor, or in some cases, literally puncturing through steel plate. The longsword could also be flipped upside down and used as a bludgeoning weapon in a style called half-swording. If you're interested in getting into sword collecting, there are a few websites I recommend checking out first. First, you want to avoid eBay. There are stories all the time about people being scammed by dubious sellers on eBay. Probably the most trusted website for sword enthusiasts would be Cult of Athena. They have the best prices and ship to almost anywhere. The second would be Museum Replicas Limited. They have sword types from all time periods and cultures, and most are reasonably priced. But with a hobby like this, you tend to get what you pay for. The standard price range for a decent, well-made sword starts around $200. Some companies make models that are in the thousands of dollars. I personally can't afford those, but they're fun to look at. And that's pretty much it as far as entry-level sword collecting goes. Like any other expensive hobby, you can dive much deeper, but it's not hard to get a hold of a decent cutter for fairly cheap. And as nerdy as it is, even girls have fun cutting up watermelons and milk jugs. They just won't admit it. What are some swords that you collect or want to know more about? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the video and enjoy the rest of your day.